Let's go to line number 2. Say good afternoon to the NDP Member of Parliament, serving the folks of St. John South, Mount Pearl, Ryan Cleary. Good afternoon, Ryan. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Paddy, to you and your listeners, sir.
Thank you for calling, my friend. What's on your mind today?
I want to talk about a statement I read on VOCM website, and a statement that I believe is attributed to Premier Dunderdale from yesterday, which he addressed journalists in St. John's in regards to this latest court case by Quebec. And the Premier said that Quebec, and now let me read this verbatim from the VOCM website, and I believe it reflects what she told reporters. But it goes like this. Dunderdale says Quebec doesn't believe that Newfoundland owns Labrador, saying it all goes back to the boundary dispute. Now, my problem is specifically with her saying that Newfoundland owns Labrador. That attitude is wrong. Newfoundland does not own Labrador.
No, and I tell you what, though, Ryan, and obviously you didn't hear the preamble, because I think the willingness of some, and now obviously you, Yvonne Jones and others, to read that into it, I think is just looking to stir the pot. How can
I don't think I'm reading anything into it, Paddy. I think that she said that Newfoundland and the word owns and Labrador together.
Yeah, it was in reference to which province can lay claim to a landmass that is Labrador between Quebec and Newfoundland. So if the terminology, if the word own is inappropriate, that's fine. But when you're answering the question about who owns what, it's hard not to use the word own.
I don't think so, Paddy, and I think if it's reflective of an attitude in Newfoundland towards Labrador that has to change, this whole owning Labrador. I spent a lot of time in Labrador over the past year. I was there at least 5 or 6 times with the Atlantic Caucus, during the federal by-election, during the provincial by-election. I was all over Labrador, and I heard what Labradorians had to say in terms of how they feel about their relationship with Newfoundland. It needs a hell of a lot of work in terms of roads, jobs, cell service, safe drinking water, infrastructure, energy, hydro on the coast, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. And there's a real nationalist sentiment in Labrador, and it's growing. And we have to watch that. And when I hear the Premier of the province talking in reference to Labrador as Newfoundland owning it, even if it's just off the cuff, I think that it's divisive politics and it's out of touch politics.
That may be, and I think it is probably not the best choice of language, but I think that this issue today, so far as divisive and the nationalistic spirit of Labrador, is being perpetuated by those in Labrador, not by the Premier's comments. When the question was
I don't agree with that, Pat.
The conversation was about the landmass that is Labrador and Quebec's want and claim of it. And when that did not go their way, she refers to, and I'm not defending her, I heard the whole conversation, so I can only go by what I took away from it. If the whole thing is, what do you suggest you say? Own it, control over, inclusion in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, like whatever the case may be. That was not about alienating or subjecting to the people of Labrador under the thumb of the lily white East End of St. John's.
I think cutting to the chase, it's like this. I think that in terms of the island's attitude towards Labrador, Labrador's attitude towards the island, when the Premier of our province makes statements about Newfoundland owning Labrador in whatever context, however she meant to say it, I think it divides. It's divisive politics. It divides the province even further. It does no good. We've got to work on our relationship. The island has to work on our relationship with Labrador, the same way that Canada has to work on its relationship with Newfoundland and Labrador. Simple as that.
I would suggest that the people of Labrador also have to look long and hard and work on the relationship and the commentary regarding the folks here on the island. I have been slandered up and down, up one side, down the other, by people in Labrador about my comments about Labrador and the distribution of wealth and the provision of services and whatnot. I think if people are looking to make some mountains out of molehills about comments passed as even things that are grammatically poor selections, then I think that's a bigger problem than the actual realities of who thinks what about who, where they live on the island or in Labrador.
I got a broader point to make, too, about this latest court case.
Go ahead.
The bottom line is, this is the third court case now, right? This is the third court case, the third case before the courts. I have had conversations with MPs in Ottawa, not just New Democrat MPs, but also, for example, with Conservative MPs. Yep. And I think that these court cases, these ongoing court cases, all this simmering negative attitude between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec, I think that has to change. I think it's time to build a new relationship with Quebec. Can you imagine, Patty? Things haven't worked out between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec since 1969, since that deal was done.
Right.
And there are a hell of a lot of other developments that could have taken place on the Remain River, on the Churchill River, that haven't taken place. But this sour relationship has killed all kinds of development. I personally believe it's time for a new relationship between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec. If we actually worked together, what we could accomplish in terms of hydro and in terms of other developments in Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec, we could do a lot more together than apart. I think it's time for a new relationship.
Listen, I'm sure you're right. I'm absolutely positive you're right on the money there, Ryan, but I would suggest, respectfully, that some of the way that Quebec behaves on the national stage is Ottawa's fault. Capitulation, this separate nation crap, the entitlement to transfer payments above and beyond that the rest of the country can even hope to attain from Ottawa, the way that we tiptoe around their every need and want, their sovereigntist government. Pauline Marois is a menace to the Federation that is Canada. How can we possibly engage in, using honey rather than vinegar in a conversation with a province that wants nothing to do with the Federation to begin with, has been had a chokehold on access through their landmass to transmit energy and anything else? How do you engage in that and start a new conversation when that's the people on the other side of the table?
You know what, Patty, man? I think that everything that you just said then is pretty much reflective of the frustration that all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians feel, stemming back to 1969 with this contract.
I'm talking about today, Pauline Marois.
Quebec has never accepted the Privy Council decision in the Labrador boundary dispute of 1927.
That's right.
And I also have my own problems with the 1969 Upper Churchill contract. I don't just believe it. When I was with The Independent, we researched this. We spoke to all the experts. We spoke to the people who were there. And at the very least, that 1969 contract is morally and ethically corrupt. Absolutely morally and ethically corrupt. But I also believe it's time to move forward. We've got to keep moving forward and build on that relationship. Build on the relationship between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec, and build on the relationship between Newfoundland and Labrador.
Listen, inside our own province, I think you're right. And I say this all the time, Ryan. I know you're a busy man and can't tune in all the time, even though you love the show. The division between the Townie and the Bayman and the Island and Labrador is the most counterproductive, and I think 95% of it is manufactured new emotion. If we actually boil it down to where we were all trying to pull the rope in the same direction, I think we find more common ground than not.
You know what, Patty? I think the division, though, between Townie and Bayman, I think that's pretty well gone. Half the people that live in town, i.e. the Northeast Avalon, St. John's, Mount Pearl. I'm the MP for St. John's, South Mount Pearl, a Townie riding. But I was born in the Bay. I was born in Gander and grew up in Harbour Grace. And I think that everybody in the riding, for example, is either first, second, or third generation Bayman. I think that's going away. But the relationship that still needs work is Newfoundland and Labrador. That cannot be ignored.
But then we have people perpetuating things from poor choices of grammar. That's my point. This is not an island looking down its nose or putting its thumb above the people of Labrador. This is absolutely the raw emotion that comes for this division comes from Labrador, Ryan. So if we're going to work on the relationship, I think without two partners across from each other at a table, where in fact we should be sitting around and holding hands, as long as that's the attitude and the air coming from Labrador, I think we have our hands full here on the island trying to develop a better relationship.
You know what I find incredibly interesting, too, from my time in Labrador, Patty, is the fact that in terms of this whole attitude of Labrador and how it's being neglected, and the poor attitude of the island towards Labrador, that's coming, I find, and a lot of the voices that I heard were Newfoundlanders who moved to Labrador who are expressing this about the island. I find that fascinating.
So do I. And listen, I've never pretended that I've lived there and understand or intimate with everybody's details. But when we talk about how Labradorians, say, for instance, are treated, the distribution of wealth, the provision of service, there's people on the island think the exact same thing about the St. John's-based government here. It's no different being in Labrador than it is here. You can be on the west coast of this island, be putting up with the fracking conversation, drilling in watersheds, screaming for dialysis machines and MRIs and better roads and better access to all general services. No different. Affordable housing, no different than someone in Labrador.
Yeah, but Patty, there is a difference between Newfoundland and Labrador. Labrador is... Patty, there is. On the ground in Labrador, Labrador is a complete different world than Newfoundland. It's completely 100% different, and you don't realize that until you go and you spend time there. It's It's a different
doesn't
world.
matter your latitude and longitude to have the same damn problems that other people have in this world of affordable housing, healthcare, education.
They've got dirt roads. They don't even have pavement. They've got
roads on the
water orders that are going on for 13 years, man.
Same as on the island.
And we treat Labrador. It's a warehouse of energy, and they don't have the basic cell services, basic water. They don't have basic services. We ignore Labrador at our peril.
And whatever that means, if that means there's going to be a sovereign movement gather even more steam up there, that will only be furthered by some of the commentary that we hear and we use and
coming
discuss.
From the Premier.
And coming from you, and coming from Jones.
Newfoundland does not own Labrador.
Nobody meant it like that, Ron. You know full well, man. Nobody said we own anybody. They don't own me. I don't own them.
The Premier said it.
She was talking about a battle between the entity of government of
Newfoundland owns Labrador.
and Quebec.
Can't be clearer than that, Patty.
Baloney.
No,
baloney.
Can't be clearer than that. She said it. It's on the VOCM website. Read your news.
I read the damn news. I respectfully disagree, and I choose to read that as a fundamental, reasonable reaction to what was said. Does the government of Quebec or the government of Newfoundland own the landmass that is Labrador? Not control of it and subservient people and thumb on and slaves. No one talked like that. No one said it like that. You can have your opinion, and I respect it, and I'm glad you called the show. But I didn't read it like that, and I think every time we do, your hope to have a better relationship is jeopardized when we say things like that based on poor choices of grammar.
No, we got to face the fact that the relationship needs work.
Understood.
It's simple as that. Anyway, Patty, listen.
Wow.
I always enjoy the conversation.
Me too. Look forward to seeing you again.
Take care.
All the best. Brian Cleary, NDP member, St. John South, Mount Pearl.